Hello there and welcome to another Robot Wars video, and this Robot Wars video is about the Robot Wars video games. In particular, this is all about ranking all the arenas. So unlike the tier lists where I'm just putting them in A, B, C, whatever, this is going to be a ranking from worst to best. I'm going to go through every single one of the Robot Wars games and go through each and every one of the arenas. Say what I like about them, why they're in that position, why this one's the worst, why this one's the best, etc, etc. Why I've ranked it above others, and yes, there will be many that are technically duplicates across different games, but a lot of the time they're so different that they're going to count as their own arena, so to speak. I won't be including side event arenas. So for example, in Extreme Destruction GBA, there's this sort of like arena which is outside and you're being thrown about. It's used for like the long jump and stuff like that. I'm not going to include ones like that. I'm not going to include the gauntlet in Metal Mayhem either, because Metal Mayhem's arena is literally just the studio arena, just slightly different. So it's instead just going to be the main arenas themselves. So no side event arenas, just the main arenas in all the games. So without further ado, which is the single worst arena in Robot Wars? The worst arena is Power Station. What else can I say? Power Station is a very boring arena. It is literally just a grey square with some electric pylons near the middle, and they don't really do all that much. It doesn't really have the most interesting backdrop. It is such a boring and dull arena, it almost feels like it's unfinished. And what's really ironic is there's a Power Station-esque arena which is much better in Robot Arena 2, which is the electric arena, which I think would have been a much better idea here. Instead, what we get is a very bland arena which looks very unfinished. It feels like there should have been a lot more like a pit or something there. Instead, we just get two electric pylons and that's it. It is easily the worst looking arena in the entire series, and it is easily the worst arena to play in. It's one that you're not going to bother playing in fact, because it's just so dull. It makes you wonder why they even bothered including it when they could have had so many other different ideas. I don't know, I just felt like the Power Station arena sucks completely. Up next is the Metal Mayhem Studio Arena, the first of the studio arenas. This one is based on the Third Wars arena. Now, while the Third Wars is my second favourite Robot Wars season, it is, at the end of the day, a very weak arena. It is one that feels very bare bones. It's very much a blue arena. I mean, the whole thing is blue or black, let's be perfectly honest, unless it's Dead Metal, who for whatever reason is pink. The Metal Mayhem arena is just very bare bones, and what we see is very ugly meshes of blue and black. That's basically the best way to describe it. It's got chainsaws on the side of the arena. I guess that's kind of cool, but you know, the only real hazard is a pit, and that's about it. There's no floor flipper, there's nothing really of value, and the house robots act more like obstacles rather than actual hazards that can come out and attack. Basically, this arena is very boring. It's very ugly to look at, and let's be honest, our Metal Mayhem is easily the worst of the Robot Wars games. Up next is another studio arena. This one is the Advanced Destruction Arena. Now, the Advanced Destruction Studio Arena is the one that you're going to be playing on the most, because it's the one that's used in story mode, etc, etc. Now, unlike the actual Fourth Wars arena, which is this brilliant arena, one of the best arenas in Robot Wars' history, there's no floor flipper on this one. There is a pit, and there are gigantic circular saws, which are meant to be like the angle grinders. Weren't in Series 4's arena, to be fair. There were spikes, and overall it's just very bare bones. Again, like, the arena just doesn't seem to have all the features there. I mean, it's missing the floor flipper, which you'd think in a game which has actual flipping in it, you'd think they'd include a floor flipper, but I guess not. And the pit, obviously it gets delayed because this is a Series 4 arena, it's on a timer, so it comes down when it goes down. The giant circular saws are the only thing that you're going to be using for the most part, because you're most of the time you're going to be pushing a robot into them, or you're going to try and flip them over and over and over again to get cheap kills. The house robots feel almost non-existent in this arena, even though they do exist in the corners and the CBZs. I'm only ranking this one slightly higher than the Metal Mayhem one because it is obviously prettier to look at, and that's about it. It's prettier to look at, but it's very bare bones still. That seems to be a trend with these bottom ones, have you noticed? Up next is Desert Storm. Desert Storm is one of the extreme destruction arenas from the GBA. GBA has very much a lot of repetition with their arenas. All of them feel very much the same. However, what makes them slightly better than the others, or slightly better than each other, I should say, is the theming. And with this one, the theming is a desert. And honestly, deserts are not the most interesting things in the world. Sand gets everywhere, and sand is kind of boring to look at, and that's what this arena is. I guess it's unique because it's the only real arena that is just a sandy arena, but then again, we do have the scrapyard as well. The arena does have sand vents, which is a very unique hazard to this game and very unique for this arena. But aside from that, it's just the same arena we've seen a million times already in the Extreme Destruction, on the GBA Extreme Destruction, I should say. It's not the most pleasant in the world. It's honestly the most forgettable of the arenas in the GBA Extreme Destruction. But nonetheless, I do think that it does have some uniqueness here and there, with the sand vents being a very unique hazard. And it is a unique arena in the sense that it is in desert. It's just also the most boring arena. Going back with Advanced Destruction now, we got the Steelworks. Now, the Steelworks is a massive downgrade from the Arenas of Destruction Steelworks. Whereas that one is a multi-layered arena, this one is a very basic arena. Now, sure, it is a uniquely shaped arena. It's basically like an upside-down T. However, it's not the most interesting in the world. You have a bunch of molten steel on one end of the arena, which, you know, you can push robots in, you can dump them there, and it's kind of cool, but honestly, the arena doesn't really have many hazards, and there's not really a whole lot going on with it. It's kind of bare bones aside from the visual appeal, I guess. It is slightly more unique than the previous arenas, but that's about it, really. It's still a very weak arena, and it's not the best in terms of the steelwork arenas. Up next is the Extreme Destruction Scrapyard. Now, Extreme Destruction is one of the glitchiest games I've ever played. It is a buggy mess of a game, and it is easily the second worst Robowars game out there, which is rather ironic because the GBA version of Extreme Destruction, which despite it looking very ugly, is really, really good. It's kind of a massive contrast between the two, but nonetheless. This is a good example where Extreme Destruction's downgrades really start to shine. The Scrapyard in Arenas of Destruction is one of the more memorable and most beloved arenas, whereas the Extreme Destruction Scrapyard is not so much. It's got a much more smaller arena to battle in. The glitchiness of this arena is very off-putting. For example, there's this crane that drops stuff that can sometimes cause a little bit too many issues when you're like bashing other robots about, or you're driving forward, or doing anything for that matter. There's a car door that is so infrequent with its swings. Like sometimes it swings so heavily that it throws your robot across the arena at like 1,000,000 miles per hour, or sometimes it just does nothing. The crusher itself is borderline, you know, forgettable compared to the crusher in the original Arenas Destruction Scrapyard, which looked a lot better and was much more big and more imposing. This arena just is a massive downgrade in every sense of the word. It just isn't very good. It's too small for what it's worth, and the house robots are glitching out and just attacking you for no fucking reason. It gets to a point where this arena is so terrible to play on. Like, I'm baffled by how they managed to screw up this arena, which in Arenas of Destruction, spoiler alert, was really fun. Up next is Deep Freeze. Deep Freeze is another one of the Extreme Destruction GBA arenas, which are very much the same as one another. This one's very similar to the Desert Storm arena in the sense that it is just a very bare-bone basic arena with some hazards here and there. This time it's called Ice Vents. I will say the music for this particular arena is absolutely phenomenal. I love the music in this game, and the music for this particular arena is one of the best tracks. Unfortunately, the arena itself is kind of generic. It is basically just an ice base of sorts, and you're just driving around. You go on a pit, you can go on a ice vent, but it doesn't really freeze your robot per se. You see all these hazards basically jotted about everywhere. It's a very generic hazard, and very generic arena. It's not the most visually interesting. However, I do think that is a good arena nonetheless. I still think it's a fun arena. I think the music is great, but it is very bare bones at the same time, which is a real shame because I think this is certainly one of the more exciting potential arenas, but as a result, it just doesn't really reach that, you know, 10 out of 10 sort of phenomenal arena that you really want to play through multiple times. You kind of get bored with it when you see it in the rankings, when you see it in the game and you play on it multiple times. It's just an okay arena. I think that's the best to describe it. It's very okay. Up next is the Japanese Rooftop. The Japanese Rooftop is iconic. It's a remake from the Arenas of Destruction Rooftop, the Tokyo Rooftop, I should say. And the Japanese Rooftop this time is much more larger. However, just because it's larger does not mean it's better. Extreme Destruction, as I've mentioned already, is a glitchy mess of a game, and unfortunately, this is another example of it. The steam vents can sometimes just blow your robots a million miles into the air or just cause all sorts of problems. I know that they work this time, unlike in Arenas of Destruction. The lighting for this arena is just dark, and it's just not as visually appealing as the previous Tokyo Rooftop. This one just doesn't really have the juice to it, so to speak. The skyline, which is the big hazard, the big, iconic thing for the arena, set piece I should say, for this arena, is now all the way at the end of the arena, and it just doesn't seem to have much of a iconography. The arena itself feels very bare bones, and I'm surprised by just how much they managed to butcher this one. For the most part, you're just going to push robots off the edge of the top of the building. You're basically just to show them off the rooftop and make them fall down. And that's not as exciting as just pushing them onto the skyline or waiting for it to break or doing all sorts of things, having the more tightness of the previous arena. The electric hazard is a unique hazard, I guess, but at the same time, I swear it's very finicky and sometimes it doesn't even work. So overall, I think that this is a very okay-ish arena, but at the same time, I just feel like it's such a downgrade from what made Arenas of Destruction such a beautiful arena. Up next is Red Planet Rumble, and like the other GBA Extreme Destruction arenas, this is very much similar to one another. It's not a bad arena per se, it's just kind of generic. It's got the generic hazards here and there, it's got some mediocre, set pieces. I guess it's meant to be like the Mars base from the PC Xbox Extreme Destruction, but it doesn't really have the same appeal, unfortunately. It's a very okay-ish arena, all things considered. It is a step up from other arenas that we've seen already, but again, it's just kind of generic. Mount Kilimanjaro is next. This is the final arena you unlock in Arenas of Destruction, and this is of course the weakest Arenas of Destruction arena in my opinion. One of the reasons why this one is so weak is really just the layout of the arena. The arena is basically a silo. You go in and out, go up and down. It's got multiple layers, which I think is kind of appealing, but at the same time, this arena just doesn't really have all much going for it. It's a big circle, more or less. The house robots feel way too off at the ends, and the centerpiece, which is that big rocket area, where if you push a robot there, they get set afire. Because the fire doesn't really do fire damage, so to speak, they don't catch fire like in Extreme Destruction, they just lose armor pieces. This one just doesn't seem to be as appealing, For Final Arena, it's easily the weakest. It's not the most memorable. The arena itself looks kind of grey and ugly, but at the same time, it is a unique arena. It is inside an arena. I believe this is one of the biggest arenas as well, and I think the multiple layers that you can go up or down on it, makes it rather unique as well. But honestly, it's kind of just a meh arena. It's nothing really to write home about, and I feel like if it was remade, it probably would be much better to make the rocket do a lot more to it, do a lot more damage, maybe add a bit more hazards, maybe make the house robots a bit more closer, so to speak, or make them like on the different layers rather than just what we get, which is a rather okay-ish arena but nothing to write home about. The Munich Car Factory is up next, and what you'd think would be quite a cool setting for an arena ends up being kind of underutilized. So you have a very tight arena, and I mean very tight. It's a small arena to fight robots in, and that's already a bit of a downside. I do love the conveyor belt at the back where you can just push a robot and they can go in and get eliminated straight away. I love the fact that if you push a robot against one of the fences, the fence actually breaks and they fall down and die. But for the most part, you're more often going to be dancing around the paint area where you have this paint pit. You push a robot in, they get picked up by a crane, their chassis slowly but surely gets damaged, so does their battery. It gets drained massively. But overall, this arena is way too small. It's got too many things going on at it. It should have been expanded on. It should have been more bigger to allow robots to fight, especially with how glitchy Extreme Destruction is, and of course house robots just pushing you all over the place. This arena is also extremely broken because you could fall into the paint pit and the crane could just be picking up an object over and over again, the same object, instead of picking your robot up, and you can just get eliminated by doing nothing, which is absolutely annoying. This is easily one of the weakest Extreme Destruction arenas, and it's a shame because it's actually got a good setup, a good idea for it. It just lacked the little bits that made it, like, could have made it better. Like, if it was bigger, I think that would have solved a lot of the problems. This next one might be a little bit controversial, but in this position I'm going to be putting the New York subway. New York subway is rather iconic to a lot of Extreme Destruction players and fans, and it is a great set piece. It is one where you have both robots on this platform. They fight out. You can push each other onto the train tracks. You can push each other on the train. You can go up these escalators and get taken out of the battle. I think overall it is a great set piece. What lets it down, in my opinion, is just how cluttered it is. You start off, whenever you play on this map, in the center. You have to go straight forward through some seats, which, if you have a big robot or you have a robot with stuff sticking out on the sides, it's not the best. You're basically going to get caught up, you're going to get stuck on these seats, and it's just not very fun. It isn't helped when the robots you're fighting tend to go towards the center area, which means that you're very much likely going to be screwed over by the fact that they're going to be fighting there and you're going to get stuck, and it just doesn't make it fun. The actual fighting mostly takes place on the edge of the platform, and even then, because of how glitchy Extreme Destruction is and the house robots are extremely volatile in this game, it means that you can just get shoved off by the house robots, which really sucks. I also don't like the fact that the AI just simply die when they're on the tracks. They don't try to fight back or try to escape. I think that would have been a much better touch. Basically, one of the biggest problems with this arena, despite it being a great setup, is how cluttered it is. If it was less cluttered, I feel like it probably would have been better, but for what it is, I think it is still a very fun map. Up next is the GBA Extreme Destruction version of the Studio Arena. The Studio Arena, you can't really go wrong with it. I think one of the biggest problems with this particular type of Studio Arena is that you can't get out of the arenas, at all. Especially with a game that is very focused on a sort of semi-working physics engine, which, unlike other Robots games, does sort of work, and I like the physics engine in the GBA Extreme Destruction. It's amazing how good this very ugly game is. And this arena, it's got the floor flipper, but the floor flipper is only really activated once a robot is immobilized and it's put on there. The house robots don't really feel like they're that utilized much. The floor spinner is the unique hazard here because obviously it's not in any of the other studio arenas, and obviously with the more physics and momentum based gameplay, it does work as it's meant to have worked. Obviously in real life the floor spinner was very underutilized. It wasn't the best, let's be perfectly honest. And of course you have the drop zone, etc. You have all these fun little hazards here and there, and it works for what it's worth. It's just a case of it just doesn't feel as special as some of the other arenas you play on, and I think compared to the other studio arenas, this one does feel slightly weakened, only because there are missing features not really able to get out of the arenas. The house robots feel very underutilized, and again, it is just a bare-bone basic arena, but it's still fun to play on. Up next is Melting Pot. Melting Pot is another GBA Extreme Destruction arena. This is basically the Steelworks arena, essentially, once again. This one's kind of cool, though. I like the fact that in the center of the arena, there's this massive molten steel pits, essentially, where robots can just be pushed in and dumped in, and they can just melt away, and it's all brutal in its in all the juicy metallic brutality, bloodlust, whatever. Just going on a ramble there, but anyways, this is definitely a fiery arena. There's all sorts of fire hazards. You got the gigantic pig. I think this one looks really good, and I think it's a fun arena to play on. And, you know, it's certainly a very eye-catching one. I think the reds really work well here. All the fire hazards really work well here. And I think the centerpiece of that gigantic molten steel pit is just amazing. It really looks good. And I love the fact you can see it flowing through in the center or, you know, around the arena in these, like, pipes. I think that's such a cool gimmick. I think it looks brilliant. Acid Bath is next. Now, Acid Bath has a really kick-ass theme to it. And the reason why I put Acid Bath above Melting Pot, even though they are basically the exact same arena, just recolored, the reason why is mainly down to the fact that I just think this is a really unique arena. That's really it. The uniqueness of the arena is fantastic, in my opinion. You have, you know, this arena which is all about, you know, acid and, you know, set in some sort of like industrial like zone somewhere. I think that works really well, and I think that's really what makes this one so much more unique compared to the arena in Melting Pot, which is something that we've seen quite a few times already now. It's just not necessarily the most unique in the world, whereas this one is far more unique, and I think that's why I've ranked this one slightly higher. Even though they are basically recolors of the same arena, I think this one is only slightly better, not only because it has a better, you know, theme tune to it, but it's also just a unique arena, something that we've not really seen in the Robots game before. Speaking of steelworks, we got the New York steelworks from Arenas of Destruction. This is such a multi-layered steelwork arena, and this is probably the best steelwork arena of them all, in my opinion at least. What makes this one so good is the multiple tiers of this arena. You know, you go up the escalators, you can battle on the bridgeway, you can push them into this giant like vent, you can push them into the, obviously, the molten steel pit as well. And, you know, I think that's such a great gimmick here, having all these different hazards. The house robots, I will say, do get a little bit in the way. Like, their positioning is really awkward, and especially when you have to go on the escalators to go up and down, the conveyor belts, I should say. I love the fact that there is a button that you can switch to turn the conveyor belts different ways, and I do think this is just such a great looking arena. I think the theme tune for this arena is awesome as well. But I will say there is another problem with this, and similar to the New York it's ironic it's another New York map, but similar to the New York subway, I do not like how cramped it can feel. Most of the time the robots are going to be fighting in the middle at the bottom area rather than on the top area, and, you know, if they were much more better in terms of their AI, it would have been fun to see them go over up the top and do some weird stuff, especially if you want to push them into the molten steel pit, which I think would be such a fantastic thing to do. But unfortunately it's very hard to achieve, because most of the time they either get stuck on the conveyor belts, or they get stuck on because the house robots just attack them. That's literally it. Basically, this is just this is the best of the steelworks arenas, in my opinion. It's also just happens to be the one which also has a lot of problems with it, but I think because it's just so fun to play beyond, and I think this perfects the idea to an extent. Obviously, you know, there's still problems, like I said, but I think this one is close to perfection. I think if there were a few more refinements, this arena could have been so much better. Like, maybe make it a little bit bigger and less cluttered. Perhaps that's the way I would see it. Up next is the explosive Extreme Destruction military base. The military base is in both Extreme Destruction and Arenas of Destruction, but the Extreme Destruction one is, in my opinion, a little bit more inferior. Aside from the obvious glitchiness of this arena, the house robots will just come in and just smash you to pieces, and there's also just random objects displayed everywhere, which kind of get in the way once again. I think that this arena, though, is still quite a lot of fun. I do think that it is much easier to get to the platform and activate the missile silo, and I do think there are little things here and there that make that just all the more better. I think that does work. I'm not a huge fan of the mines still, and the mines here seem to be far more glitchy, where your robot just spaz out as soon as it hits it, and it could be like the littlest of touches that cause it to spaz out and cause it damage to your tracks or wheels or anything like that. Basically, I think this is still a decent map, I just don't think it's as good as the other one. Speaking of which, the Arenas of Destruction missiles, military base, I should say, not missile silo, although there is a missile silo in it, is in my opinion much better. Everything feels a lot more compact, but I think this actually works to its favour. It still manages to be a far more exciting arena, and basically a lot of my praises and criticisms still remain. I do think the mines are a lot more better here. They're a lot more hidden, but they're also a lot more obvious, so you can avoid them. And I think the fact that it is less glitchy means that this arena is far better as a result, thanks to Arena of Destruction just being a much better game than Extreme Destruction. Up next is one of the more controversial arenas. This is the aircraft carrier from Extreme Destruction. This one is an arena that people either absolutely love or they absolutely hate. Now, I quite like this arena, personally. I think the setup of this arena is fantastic. I think the amount of hazards making this a very difficult arena is it makes it really challenging to play on. I don't agree with it being the fourth arena in the Extreme Destruction map rotation, so to speak. This one should have been like one of the last arenas because this one's just way too difficult. That said, I do think that this arena works out fine. I think the arena itself is a fun arena to be on. I love the zip line that you can propel a robot off. I love the fact that there is a missile silo that you can just push robots in. I love the jet flames that can set fire to you. I love the depth charge as well that causes the whole arena to shake violently side by side. It makes this arena very challenging. Now, I don't think this should have been the fourth map you unlocked. I feel like this should have been a much later on map to unlock. Maybe one of the last ones, with Mars Base. Because it is that challenging, and it is a very challenging map to do, especially when you consider the glitches. This map is very glitchy, and it is filled with all sorts of objects which get in the way. As a result, I can't really put this map any higher because I think that it does suffer a lot of problems. That said, I do quite like this arena. I think this arena works out for what it can do, and I feel like, a lot of people who have problems with it, I understand why. The game is a glitchy mess. Extreme Destruction is a very glitchy mess, and it is unbearable to play 99% of the time. But at the same time, this arena is just fun. It's a fun arena, and I feel like if it was a less glitchy game, it could have worked much better. Scrapyard is next, the Arenas of Destruction version. This one is a far superior version to the Extreme Destruction arena, I should say. This one, for one thing, is much larger, and you get to utilize the arena a lot more. The big crusher is a much more standout feature here, and house robots are at a good distance that they don't interfere too much with the match. I think this one is a classic. I mean, there's a reason why it's remade for Extreme Destruction. It's a big scrapyard. What else can I say? And I think the music is very funky for this one, albeit a little bit less robot combat-y-esque, if that makes sense. It probably does not. But what I'm trying to say is it is a fun arena. Easily one of the most memorable arenas, and like I said, there's a reason why this one was remade. The Scrapyard is a fantastic arena, all things considered, and I think it's just a lot of fun. It is a million times better than the one from Extreme Destruction. It just is. Like I said, it's amazing what you can do when you don't litter the place full of crap and you make the arena slightly bigger. You can do a lot more in that way compared to Extreme Destruction's obsession with trying to cramp everything into one small arena or have too many hazards. Like I said, by making things a little bit more larger and having less filler, I guess you could say, it works far better. Up next is the Extreme Destruction Studio Arena. We're basically getting rid of all the studio arenas by this point. There's one still to go, but this one, the reason why it's so high up and not necessarily higher is because of the fact that, again, this game is glitchy, and because it's so glitchy, you can't really enjoy a lot of these arenas. And the studio arena here, I think, works out for the most part. I love the fact that the drop zone is utilized here. I love the drop zone. Such a great hazard. I love the, everything about it. However, I am, well, let's be perfectly honest. When you play this game, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be fighting around the pit area. You're not going to be fighting around the top area at all. Like, you're never going to see that top end of the arena at all, unless, you somehow get pushed over there. The house robots are also extremely annoying because, again, this game is super fucking glitchy, and as a result, the house robots just attack you whenever you're, like, 50 meters away from you. It really sucks, and as a result you don't really get to enjoy this arena. But it is the studio arena, and I like that the studio arena here is, well, just the studio arena. There's nothing really wrong about it. It's just fun. The drop zone is definitely a standout feature. I like the fact that the air vents in this arena actually are powerful hazards. They're not random hazards that do nothing and just squirt CO2. This time they actually throw you about, which I think is quite a fun twist to these rather useless real life hazards. That said, the glitchiness of this game and also the fact that you're mostly going to be fighting in the lower end of the arena means that this arena can't really be enjoyed for what it's worth. It is a studio arena, so of course it's going to be a lot of fun. It is a classic nonetheless. Up next is the North Sea Oil Rig, which quite frankly has one of my all-time favourite music pieces. I love the music of this arena. I love how atmospheric this arena is. It genuinely is a stunningly beautiful and atmospheric arena. And it's a shame to put it not necessarily in the top 5, and the reason why is because I do think there are a few problems here and there, and the biggest problem I think is how tight the arena feels. The arena is fun. It is fun as hell. You can throw robots out, you can push them off the edge of the helipad area, you can push them into a drill. The arena itself is fun as hell. The problem is, however, it is so tight to get around places. Same problem that I had with the New York subway, in the sense that when you go in the middle area, particularly where the drill is, it's so cramped that you can't really do much. And because there's a house robot there, in most cases it's going to be shunt, it makes it even more cramped. That said, it's still a fun as hell arena. It's a very basic arena, all things considered, but it is fun and I love it. I love the theme of this arena. I love the look of it. I love the introduction as you go hovering down. The camera hovers down, it shows the drill, it shows everything. It is a beautiful arena, atmospheric, has some of the best music, and it is a personal favorite of mine, but it's not necessarily top 5 material. There are far better arenas in my opinion. Up next is the German Dockyard. The German Dockyard, I believe, is the biggest arena in Robot Wars' history. If you consider the size of all the arenas, this one is just gigantic. You can either be on the pier and you can just fight robots, push them into the sea. It's great fun there. However, you can also go up onto the ship itself and you can push them into this garbage hold, which is also a lot of fun. The arena is massive and it has a sense of scale, but it also has all sorts of fun places to play at. I guess the only major negative is how tight it is to get on board the ship. Maybe if they had like a big ramp which you could just, or a bunch of planks you could just drove up on, that would have been a little bit easier maybe. But nonetheless, this is such a big arena. It has, once again, fantastic music, but it is just a lot of fun. It is gigantic. It has a lot of hazards. It's just a fun arena. What else can I say? I just love the garbage hole on the ship. I love pushing robots in the sea. It just elevates the entertainment value when you play on this particular arena, and that, in my opinion, makes it slightly better than the North Sea Oil Rig, but only slightly, because whilst North Sea Oil Rig is more atmospheric, this one certainly has a lot more scale and has a lot more freedom to move about and do whatever you want on the arena, which I think is fantastic. Up next is Robot Factory, and it's a testament to see a GBA title in the top 5, but this arena is amazing. Essentially, it's like the scrapyard. You're in this scrapyardy setting. However, there's this giant silver Sakilot head right as the big centerpiece, and you have these conveyor belts which have all these flame turrets. It's amazing. You have this giant pit with spikes in it. What's not to love? It's a very basic arena, all things considered, obviously, because it is a GBA arena, but my god, is the aesthetics for this arena great. And as a battle arena, this is fun as hell. You can just push robots all over the place. You can just admire the scenery of the giant Sakilot, which is absolutely phenomenal. Push them in the pit, get attacked by the bloody turrets. Basically, this arena is aesthetically fantastic and pleasing, and it does everything you want in an arena. It has hazards which are damaging and fun. You know, it has enough space that you can maneuver about in, and it's just very good. There's no real point to it other than it's very good for how simple it is, and yet it's also one of the more aesthetically pleasing arenas. And it's no wonder that during the endurance challenge, so to speak, in the GBA title, it's not called endurance in that game, but still, it manages to have a fantastic setup where all these all-stars just come out of the secure lot head, and one by one you just battle them. You know, it's no wonder they chose this arena for that, because it is that fantastic, it is that good. And up next is Extreme Destruction's Mars Base. The Mars Base is maybe a little bit small to some people, but I love this arena. You have all these wild and wacky hazards. You have the airlock, which is one of my favourite little toys, although, let's be perfectly clear now, if you're an invertible robot, this is so easy to abuse and spam. And it's just great seeing robots fly out at a million miles per hour. It's fantastic. I love the fact the house robots are in this, like, in these little pods that they come out of. You got this anti-gravity which can make every robot float and all that. You have this little chute as well, this garbage chute. You can push them into a pit, and this arena has everything you want. If you look back at earlier in this video, we had a Mars setting for the GBA Extreme Destruction. That one, it was basically the same as what we saw before. It wasn't that unique. However, this one is so unique and so impressive that this is a deserving final arena, because it is just a lot of fun. And the music choices they use for this one is amazing. This one is it's just fun. Like, you have all these wild, wacky hazards, and these hazards all contribute to a very good time. Now, admittedly, and I already said this, but this is an arena where you will need to play as an invertible machine. You play as Tornado, play as a random invertible robot made in the Builder-Bot, because this one is not very favourable towards robots which aren't invertible. And that's not to say that it takes away from this arena. I mean, there's still that pit, the garbage chute, and you can still use the airlock. But at the same time, this is definitely a invertible friendly arena, so to speak, because if you're invertible, you just win. You can just hit the anti-grav and take out maybe robots that can't self-right, or use the or abuse the airlock, which I love that airlock so much. I love the airlock. The airlock just sending robots a million miles per hour. I also love the fact that you can see the house robots sometimes like struggling in their little control pods. It's brilliant. This arena is just great. Like, overall, aesthetically pleasing, full of amazing hazards, and it's just a unique arena. One of the most unique I think we've ever seen in a Robot Wars game. And number 2 is the Arenas of Destruction Studio Arena. There's nothing really that you can go wrong with the main arena of Arenas of Destruction, which is, of course, the Studio Arena. This arena is based on the Series 4 arena, which is easily one of the best arenas that the show has ever had. And it really goes to show the quality of this type of arena when put into a video game. The pit, the flipper, everything about it just makes it so intimidating and brilliant. The lighting as well, the dark lighting, I think works wonders here. I do think that maybe it's a little bit too dark. It looks almost Series 3-esque, but that doesn't mean anything. The other major flaw I will say about this arena is the fact that you can't really get out of the arenas unless you specifically push a bunch of robots into a corner, like in Capture the Flag, and one of them goes flying out, or you play as Behemoth, which is infamously known to get out of the arenas in this arena. But that doesn't take away from the fact that this arena is just great. From the side spikes, from the flipper, from the house robots, everything about it looks brilliant, and it's intimidating, it's atmospheric. You see the crowd, which are all just PNGs jumping up and down. It's brilliant. There's a lot of memories made with this particular arena, and that's why it's number 2, because it is just perfection almost. Like I said, there are a few things here and there which aren't brilliant, but my god, do I love this arena. And I love the introduction as you glide through the arena. You see the flame jets, you see the house robots, you see everything else there. Man, this arena is just it's just a beautiful arena. I don't know what else to say. It's atmospheric, it is beautiful, and let's be perfectly clear, it is a classic. It is one that you're going to have the most memories of when you play the game, and this is the arena that stands out the most. Genuinely one of the best arenas, and it's all the way up at number 2, so you can clearly tell this is a really good arena. And number 1, if you couldn't have guessed already by the process of elimination, is the Tokyo Rooftop. The reason why this is my favorite arena of all time and not the other Japanese rooftop is because this one is just a lot of fun. From the get-go, when you have that atmospheric, calming yet funky music playing as it introduces the arena, the white tile base of the arena, it's just really beautiful. The bright lighting as well, I love it so much. And yet you look in the background, you got all these neon signs, all these dark looking tower blocks, and it just looks great. It just looks really great. The arena has quite a bit of space to it, even though it's a little bit cramped around the edges. It does still have a lot of space. You can push robots off the building, which is fun as hell. You can break the skyline, forcing robots to drop in. That is always the best part about this arena, how you can create an additional hazard by breaking the glass and, wondering when it's going to break. I think that's just so much fun. The house robots are all in their CPZs, and of course, they don't attack unless you go near them, and of course it creates an additional problem for you. This arena is just really fun. Like, it really is fun. And the funny thing is, it's one of the more simple arenas when you get down to it. The skyline, the vents, the sides of the arena, or the sides of the building. And yet, you can't help but just fall in love with this. The music as well that's used in this, which is both the Tokyo Rooftop or Rooftop Rumble music, and the other one, which is Mechanical Minds, which is technically the theme of Matilda. It's perfect. It is pure, perfection. It really is. It really is an atmospheric arena as well, with like I said, with the bright white tiles, and then you have all this dark surrounding rooftops around, and these neon lights. I think it looks so gorgeous. This is just a million times better than the one from Extreme Destruction. The one from Extreme Destruction was really low down on this tier, on this ranking, because it just wasn't very good. One of the reasons why was it was A, too dark, B, it was way too big, ironically, whereas this one, it was perfect the way it was. It really is. And you still have enough room around the border of the skyline, which I think makes it really, really fun. And it's just a really fun arena to play on. No matter what you're doing, you can play Mad Bomber, you can play Capture the Flag, you can play Annihilator, you can play just head-to-head. No matter what, you're going to have fun on this arena. And that is what makes this arena, for me, the number 1 best arena. It is fun, the hazards are great, everything about it, the atmosphere, the music, it is pure perfection in my opinion. And it's a shame that Extreme Destruction just completely butchered this arena, absolutely butchered it for what it would have been. But still, we still have this original arena, and Arenas of Destruction is by far the best Robot Wars game when you compare it to the others, although Extreme Destruction on the GBA comes a close second, I will say. Although, funny enough, the arenas for Extreme Destruction GBA did not really rank that well here. The Extreme Destruction PC/Xbox version, that one was all over the place. You had some really bad ones, but then you had some really good ones, let down mostly down to the glitches and the how they remade certain arenas. And of course, you had arenas of Advanced Destruction. Again, a lot of them were low down, but then you had Robot Factory, which is just one of the best ever. It's surprising how far that one was compared to the others. But regardless, did you agree with my ranking of the Robot Wars arenas, or do you have your own ranking of your own? I just said that twice, didn't I? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.